Okay. So let's see. So it's 7:01 and we will start our Lake Boon Commission meeting of September 22nd, 2021. Let me quickly go through the agenda and then we'll jump right in. We got a lot today, but I hope we can kind of move through quickly, try to get folks out. So, all right, so our topics today are opportunity for public comment. We have one set of meeting minutes to review, approve. We want to talk amongst ourselves a little bit about our herbicide order of conditions and the renewal from Hudson. We have Solitude deliverables in the contract, expiration to have some further discussion on. We have bills for payment. And I did put that purposely a little bit after the Solitude discussion. And end of season planning for drawdown, handling the buoys, the boat, all that stuff. Dam repair work, just it was a little bit of update on what was happening there at this point. Water quality and Healthy Lake Boon initiative, just to combine that, given that there's a lot going on there. And then I think Dan might want to just give a quick update on the Kattelle property plans, and then we'll have time for old business, new business, and decide when we need to meet next. So with that, I will open it up to public comment. Do we have anyone that would like to? Yes, Dick. Hi.
I think, as everybody knows, the Lake Boon book is out, and there will be a talk next Tuesday night, the 28th, at the First Federated Church 200 Central. Oh, look, there's the book.
There you
At
go.
least one
We have
copy's
one
been
too.
sold. Cost you $20, but since you people are big supporters of the lake, for you, only $25 per copy.
All righty.
So Tuesday night, and be a review of the book and so forth, and we will have them there. So
Excellent.
come early, come often.
So I don't know if.
At what time?
it'll
What time
be
is that?
7,
7 p.m.
I'm sorry, what day was that again?
Tuesday?
next Tuesday, week from yesterday.
So that's September 28th.
Correct.
And location, I'm sorry, I was distracted.
First Federated Church,
Okay.
which is 200 Central Street.
Great.
Righty. Thank you for
So,
that.
Chris, I don't know if it will be appropriate during the meeting or whether we need a separate agenda item, but I think we should in some way acknowledge this contribution by Dick and Lou putting together this book. It really is marvelous, and it's a great contribution to our understanding of the lake, and we should have some way to acknowledge that.
Absolutely. I think you just did.
There we go. Okay. Way
Well,
to go, Dick.
thank you very much. Just send money.
Yeah, and I mean, seriously, it's such a fascinating collection of geological history, science, as well as all the human interest stories, the articles that you found. I mean, you really have it's I'm sure a huge amount of work to do this, and you've done a wonderful job with it. And I keep on opening up and finding some new nuance of our history that I hadn't known before.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
If you're
Thank
willing to exchange books and payments through mailboxes and just through the neighborhood, is that okay if we arrange that through emails?
I'm sorry, Kirk, was that to me or?
Yeah, I was just asking if we can get copies of the book, do a note and arrange to drop things off by boxes or something like that.
Well, okay, I think the best way to do that around the lake would be Dave. who
Okay.
is-
Yeah, I have some, and Sonia Nicholson has some.
Got it.
Either of us can handle that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent. Any other public comment?
Oh, geez.
Yep. Dave?
One public comment, the Pine Point buoy light. It's late in the season, so I don't know if it's worth fixing or not, but it's not lit.
Jay, was that as of when?
That was as of a couple days, the full moon, a couple days and a week ago.
I fixed it once. You know, we've got somebody that doesn't like that light
Oh, really?
and they're damaging it on purpose. I just don't know who it is.
But we promised that during the sailboat race, we didn't run into it. It was a starting point.
I had complaints about that light. And it's one of the neighbors doesn't like it, and I think they go out and damage it on purpose. If we can catch them, it's a criminal offense. They can go to jail for doing it.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out. Okay. Oh, the other comment I could make is that the tree that I noted was vulnerable was taken down today.
Oh, excellent.
It's out of there and the whole damn thing got chipped up.
Wow, that was quick.
One hell of a, yeah, Tree Masters did that in 2 hours.
Whoa. Yeah, they're getting really good. I mean, they get a lot of, all of these guys are getting a lot of practice over the last like 2 years of
Yeah.
trees down. So, yeah.
And it was just fortuitous that it didn't, the lightning hit it, that cracked it, but that it didn't fall out either on their house or on a
Yeah.
neighbor or the boat or the lake or anything. They were able to get it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, any other public comment?
Yeah, Dave, which buoy did you say was out?
Pine Point?
Pine Point. Okay. I didn't fix that one. I fixed the other one.
Yeah, that one, yeah, the Basin 1 Narrows buoy is working well.
Okay, we call
That's
that we call that number 2. We call Pine Point number 1.
Okay.
Okay. And then I'm going to close out public comment and thank you all. We'll move on to meeting minutes. So Dan, I know you sent us.
Yeah, I did submit this
draft.
from August 17th, and I did submit a draft to you. Chris, thanks for your edits. I've implemented your edits and then sent back the revised version.
Okay. So I had no further comments or corrections. So do we have a motion to approve the August 17th minutes as submitted?
As amended. Yes, as amended. I'll make
Well,
that.
actually, they're as submitted because he amended them before the meeting.
Okay, I haven't seen that copy.
Okay. So kind of your,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes, assuming that they've already been amended with your comments in them.
okay, and I second that. Any further discussion? Not hearing any, so all in favor of
Aye.
approving? Aye,
Aye.
and that is all 3 of us, that is unanimous. Thank you again, Dan, for getting those out to us ahead of time so we can do a quick review.
Barely ahead of time, but that's okay.
Well, still was ahead.
And Chris, you do such a good job finding errors. I always read them after you.
Aha. That works. That was I have to say that one was a tough one. I had like bunches of notes all over kind of my agenda, the front and back. It was like, oh my God. So you did a great job, Dan, in sort of
Okay,
filtering that down and not making
good.
it crazy. So thank you. All righty, so we are moving on to the herbicide order of conditions with Hudson. And Dan, when we met last time, you were going to the meeting. I just want to put it into the record what happened there and where we stand.
Yeah, and just as you may recall that Stowe had already approved the herbicide treatment on a 3-year renewable basis. Hudson said, sure, we'll do 3 years, but you got to come back every year to, they did a first year and then they would review it again. We actually missed the deadline for that end of first year review because we were still trying to get information from Solitude. Well, so I met on August 19th with the Hudson Conservation Commission. I shared with them the letter that we had drafted. They were very understanding that we were nobly trying to comply and that they understood that was the reason. So by exception, they said that they would, even though it had technically expired, they would just renew it for the additional 2 years. They know that we come back to them regularly, so they don't feel they need to do that 1 year at a time thing. So we have now a full 3 year. They sent the order of conditions. I have that document and I can post it.
Okay, yes, if you would do that and just get a copy to make sure that Conray and Red and I at least have that. And then obviously we can post it onto the website.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you for doing that, and thank you for wrestling a positive outcome out of that.
Yeah. Well,
They're often that's a tough audience sometimes.
Yeah, and I thank them for their toughness because I think they bring a lot of expertise. They've got some really top-notch people and they care about reviewing things carefully. And, they also really appreciated that the letter showed the seriousness of our work. And that's actually the next topic.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So we will move on to our next one, which is just to have some discussion about what's happening with Solitude, the deliverables, and any actions that we want to start thinking about. As we know, that the contract with Solitude was a 3-year contract. It will be completed, and we would need to look at a renewal with them or someone else to do treatment in the spring. So I think first is just I want to have a little bit of discussion around the response that we got from David Manch from Solitude, who's the overall operations manager for the Northeast. So I think they're trying to be a little bit more responsive. What I was not clear about, and I'm wondering if any of the folks, whether David Gray, Dan, Conway, Kirk, any of you have a sense for the response about the residue and the fact that it's not needed at this point, not needed because of the chemicals that were used and not used. So does that ring true? I don't know anything about kind of the biology or the chemistry there, but does that ring true to folks?
Well, let me first say, and I think Red may be able to weigh in, and Dave as well here, but let me first say that in fact, no matter what they treat with, sonar or some other treatment, it's their responsibility to assure that treatment has been done and that there's no residue. Now, it may be scientifically that sonar is one that tends to need more attention to that, but there's nothing in the agreement that says the only thing they have to measure is sonar. They really should follow up to make sure. And I think I'm suddenly blanking on the other one that they
Like what?
Dicot, yeah. That in fact there are some questions about dicot that in fact the Hudson Conservation Commission raised. We all believe that it's safe and so on, but that is one that we need to pay attention to. And so the agreement itself does not say that they only have to look at one thing and not the other.
Yeah, I understand that, but the contract isn't going to necessarily say, each individual thing. So I don't know. So I'm just really trying to understand whether that statement from them rings true with the folks who understand sort of the chemical elements of this. David, did you have
back in the cobwebs of my memory, I recall that the concentration measurements were implemented at the time of treatment and for the next 30 or 60 days afterwards to make sure they maintained the concentration in order for it to be effective. It is biodegradable and photodegradable so that it does go away. But I believe, and I can't remember which of the herbicides it was, but one of them that they treated with had to be maintained, and they were supposed to give it a second treatment if it didn't stay up at that level for the specified period of time.
So that's the opposite of what I was just saying about it dissipating, that the issue is that we needed to maintain. Is that what you're saying?
Right, right. So it's also something they can't do 3 months later.
Right, yes.
They didn't do it, it didn't get done.
Sonar has to be
I think
maintained,
they're saying that it's sonar.
sonar needs to be maintained at 20 parts per billion. I think 40 is the number they actually look for, but 20 works. That's what we've always done. So I don't know what they treated with before. And the dicot, I don't think that dicot's more of a local. Kirk, you're probably more of an expert on this than any of us. But
We only used dicot this year, Connie.
Right.
no sonar?
No.
Okay.
So it may be, so maybe this is just, I think we're all trying to understand a little bit more. So this would be a good thing for us as we kind of move forward with them, to have someone, whether it's David or their biologist or whatever, have, be on a meeting with us, and let's talk through some of those things, just so, because I don't really believe that the contract is going to be so clear about, each individual, chemical and what needs to be tested for what. I think we kind of left that to them to do the right things.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're not paying attention to doing the right thing.
Yeah. Do we know why they didn't use sonar?
It did, they weren't seeing the growth that,
I think,
Kind of-
isn't sonar, as I understand it, sonar is done intensively for 1 year and then only spot treatment if needed in the subsequent 2 years. And this was the second of those 2 off years. I think they had specified in their review that they might, if they went and they saw that they needed it, because it depends on which plants they see. But then in the end, they didn't use it. But this is one of their off years from that.
I think that was their conclusion from the pre-survey, was they didn't see the weeds that would require sonar.
right.
Now, technically, I don't know whether that's true or not.
Okay, so I think what we do need to do, well, so let's kind of move a little bit to the next thing, which is we are waiting to hear back from them about a survey that one of the biologists did apparently sometime in the last week or so. So I have not yet heard anything back from them. Once we take a look at what that said, I think that's the point that we would want to set up time and have someone explain both what they saw, why, what did it tell them, what does it tell them kind of going forward.
That's true. However, I think that in my view, they're not responding to the heart of the matter, which is that they have been unresponsive to the concerns we've raised, and they need to take charge and give us what we need. And we've specified what we want, and we're supposed to get it. Now, as I recall, Chris, when you had your first meeting with them, after the letter, they really weren't prepared. They hadn't done anything since they got the letter.
Correct.
Then you had to wait till them to give a response. They said, oh, well, our person's out in the field. And now this understanding of whether they're supposed to do a measure or not, and now they were waiting for this. They're not truly responding to the core issue, which is that they need they haven't, I don't believe David has named, he's the contact person, but I don't believe he's supposed to name somebody else, and he hasn't done that. And so, I think we just need to wrap up this, get them to deliver what they can, pay them what's appropriate for what they've done, and then rebid this for the next 3 years.
Yeah, I don't disagree that, we aren't, we haven't gotten what's in the contract. And certainly they've been not as responsive as they should be. And they can't, they can't do tests now that will tell us what happened 3 months ago, 4 months ago. So there's something we're not going to get, period. I mean, we're not going to get that. We're going to get what they can tell based on, the effectiveness based on their, more current survey of the weeds and all of that. So I don't feel like we're certainly not in a position where we're getting everything we want, but I think they are making an effort to be more responsive than they have been, right? We're getting answers, they're responding to emails. Something has happened. It's not
I think
always.
we have to hold their feet to the fire and
I
get
agree with you on that, Red.
as much as we can and get the data about the lake and then move on.
Yep. Yeah, David?
Yeah, Conray jogged my memory there. It is sonar that is the chemical that you need to maintain that residual. So I think this issue of checking the concentration is a non-issue for this year's treatment.
Well,
Diquat.
maybe so, but the Hudson Conservation Commission, when they asked about this, they said they were asking the question of dissipation, and they were in particular concerned about diquat. Now, what I thought we had in the contract was that it's their job, it's Solitude's job to, whether it is monitoring if it continues like sonar or dissipates like diquat, it's their job to make sure with a follow-up that it is being both effective and safe. And it may be that in the natural science of things that the diquat naturally dissipates and they didn't think they needed to test because it just dissipates just because of its normal operations. Maybe that's the case, but they have not informed us of that. And there's nothing in the agreement that said that they're able to kind of write that one off.
Are they using pellets or liquid?
This was
I
liquid.
believe it
I'm
was
pretty sure,
liquid.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was liquid.
So way back when we first started doing this, we didn't like diquat because what we were informed of way back when is diquat is the nastier chemical, and it's your second choice. The sonar is your first choice for the fluoridone, but diquat is a point solution. If you treat with sonar, what you don't get, you go back and get with diquat. So that's what my memory says, David. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I'm surprised that they didn't use pelletized sonar, but I'm not an expert on the chemistry anymore.
Yeah, I can't tell either what the relative toxicity is, and but I know that in the past the only residual measurements they have ever made have been for sonar.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And we never did residual on diquat. And I don't know how fast it dissipates, but
Okay. So I agree with you, Red. We have to stay on them, and I will do that. Because if I don't hear by Friday about the report from the post survey that they did, I will press him again and we'll try to get that. I think that there's not much we can do until we see what they did actually look at, because we can't say whether they did or they didn't do any of the other things that by contract they were supposed to be doing, until we actually get that information. So
Our order of condition and the contract says they will test and report on the water clarity, temperature, and dissolved oxygen concentration
correct.
above and beyond the chemical.
And we've got none of that.
Yeah,
None
I
of
know we
that.
have nothing, Dan, but that's what we're waiting to. We obviously it's not, it didn't happen when it should have happened. But we're holding their feet to doing it. That's what our letter said. We asked them
Yep.
to actually deliver on that. So we need to give them the chance to actually do that. And again,
Okay.
they are our current vendor. And we I think we need to keep working through with them for the
Mhm.
time being and get
Yep.
what we should. That will
Right.
help us understand whether they look like a viable, group to do work in the future, or they're not. In any case, I think, if we have other viable companies to do this, we're gonna need to be looking at those, so.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you, Chris, for being willing to take the lead on this. I think Red and I both got really frustrated, and you've been able to make some headway. This letter certainly has got their attention, and so thank you for doing that. And as you say, we need to. This is what we said. If you comply with this, but we will hold off on our pay. If I understand,
Yep.
we'll hold off on our payments until they complete a deliverable. And I think that, we'll play out the rest of the contract. If, in my view, if there's some part of this, like the measurements that they actually did not complete, then there may be some portion of the payment that we don't give because they didn't do it. But that's a topic for another day, I think. And now you're proceeding with this, and meanwhile, we have done, as I think I mentioned last time, some searching for other firms, and we've found that there are in fact others that could respond when we put out the RFP.
Yeah, and I do think that that's something that we need to talk about when that process needs to start. And I don't honestly know how long it generally takes, but if that's something that we need to get started in the next month or two. I don't know if anyone who's done this before has any input on that.
Yeah, it takes a while, number one, but number two is, if there are other viable suppliers, then we're no longer in a sole provider situation. And by law, we're required to go after those other companies. In other words, if we found other companies that can treat the lake for us, then we're no longer in a sole source situation.
Yep.
So your contracting officer in Stowe should, would require us to get bids from all,
Yes.
at least submit an RFP to those people. If they don't respond, that's one thing, but we at least have to submit.
Yes.
And sooner is better than later.
Yeah.
Do you want me to follow up and talk with maybe Kathy to see what kind of timing she would recommend for this from Stowe's perspective?
Yeah, I think that would be great. Just somebody that has some experience in this, to give us a sense of, this often takes, 3-4 months,
Yep.
to kind of make happen. I don't know. So
When does the
Okay.
Solitude contract end?
May.
Yeah, it's in May, although their actual deliverables, I believe, are due at the end of December for them to give their final report. The reason it's cycled through annually is that there's just that date. That's when they start, but the date to finish was it end of November, end of December, or something, for them to submit their final report, and that's their last deliverable.
So we need to get the request.
Well, there may be a I'm not sure about, Dan, I've forgotten, I'll have to look. There may be a pre-season survey that they would do.
Well, they did. The
also.
pre-season survey is not, I don't believe is in part of this renewed contract, because that really is the pre-season survey for the next year.
Yeah, I'm not.
And
I'm
we
not-
would
yeah, I
really
hear what you're
want
saying.
the new
Yep.
company
Yep.
to do the survey if they're going to do the treatment.
Right.
And it's got to be done before May.
Yeah.
May's
Oh,
too
yes.
late,
Yeah.
isn't
I
it?
mean, it's got to be done well
We've
before
got to
May.
get RFPs out very soon. And Kathy's the wrong person. The right person is town manager. Because
Denise.
because there's a contracting, this has got nothing to do with Conservation Commission. This is all contracting rules. So we have to put out a request for bids. And we have to do that. Then there's clocks that start to run. And I don't remember the numbers anymore. But
Yeah.
we get the RFP, we submit it to these at least 2 vendors. Then they have so many days to respond. And those clocks add up. And, and that's why, we definitely want this out sooner rather than later.
Yep. So I will follow up and talk with Denise.
Okay.
Thank you. And
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Conrad, for kind of helping us with some of the experience here. All righty, so I think that kind of covers what we wanted it to around Solitude. Well, I'll stay on top of them for continuing to give us information. And then, yeah, Dan, if you'll help us out with understanding the process that we need to initiate in order to look for a, kind of a new contract with someone for
Yeah.
next year.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All righty. So that brings us to bills for payment. So maybe we do the easy one first. So I have bill for, what is it, $14.99 for the Zoom meeting account for the month of August. So
I move that we approve reimbursement.
I second it.
Any further discussion?
Is it possible to do more than 1 month at a time on that Zoom meeting?
Sorry, say that again?
Can we pay that more than 1 month at a time so we don't have,
Well, sometimes I just wait 2 months.
okay,
They're gonna bill, they bill monthly. They bill right to my credit card, Conway. So sometimes I just hold on to a couple of them, and sometimes, if we have it, try to keep the paperwork moving, that's all.
yeah,
All right, so no further discussion. So all in favor of approving that reimbursement? Aye.
Aye.
All right, that is approved unanimously. All right. And the other one that are there, aside from Solitude, Conway, or
I have none.
Dan?
Nope.
Nothing. Okay, so now we have 2 bills from Solitude. So we have the July, I guess it is, July bill, which we held, right, payment, and we now have the September bill. What we indicated in our letter to them was that for the July payment, which was for $3,906.25, we were asking them to establish a primary contact person there. We asked them to have a designated Lake Boon Commission representatives, receive detailed or have detailed discussions with that person about the matters that we've talked about, and that they must respond within 3 days, work days, for any contact that we reach out looking for information. And finally, they must provide required data on the water quality from this year's treatment. So that included water quality, dissolved oxygen, temperature, and herbicide residue. And of course, the residue is the one we've been talking about. So given that those were the milestones, we are not in possession of the results of the data quality still. So my sense is that we would still not approve this invoice. But I want to throw that out to Conway and Dan. Are you in agreement on that?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay. So
And
therefore,
Chris,
we are
Chris,
still hopeful.
we need to determine whether when we get the data, is it still useful? Or is it, if it's not useful to us anymore because it's late, should we pay for it?
Yes, I think we'll have to tackle that, Red, but they did the work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not, they didn't do the post-treatment survey, clearly,
Right.
that did not happen.
Yeah.
So there may be some element of it, but they did do the treatment, and the treatment by all kind of, by most of our reckoning, it, was effective. It did, actually.
Well, actually,
So.
Chris, maybe we should ask, did they understand and accept the terms of this communication?
Sorry, in terms of what, Dan?
The letter that we said, these are the terms that we specify.
Yep.
Did they accept that those were our terms?
I would say that that yes, in our conversation that Red and I had with David Manch, I would say yes, in the sense that he acknowledged, the issues. He acknowledged that we, that these were reasonable expectations, and that they would not, I explained, we have no intention of paying any penalty
Mhm.
for late payment, and he agreed that would not happen. So to
So
me,
then
I
it
think
seems,
he has.
yeah, so it seems like it's pretty straightforward. We just go through the checklist. Did they meet these terms? And they did not. So we do not approve it. And then we move on and wait until they do.
Correct. And I think the only thing that's, that's a little fuzzy is right, this herbicide residue analysis. So that we might end up approving it at the point they've delivered all the other things. And if we accept that the residue is in fact not appropriate, then we would go ahead and approve. If we think that's, truly in breach of contract, then we'll have to deal with
So
it.
we'll wait and see what,
Yeah.
We'll take it a meeting at a time.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so I think then our decision is we are still holding on that invoice, and then clearly we're still holding on the September invoice.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, if you just, I don't think we need to, well, maybe we should officially make a motion to.
I move that we do not approve at this time payment for either of those invoices from July or September.
I second it.
Okay, excellent. All right, any further discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And that is unanimous, so. Okay,
I mean, what did you do to your sleeve over there?
There's somebody who says
I'm gonna put them
iPhone
on-
3 that if you go to
Yep,
mute.
yep, I'm putting them on mute.
They're there. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, excellent. So we have no other bills. Great. Let me make my note here. Okay, so next on our agenda is end of season planning. And this is just to talk about timing and resources to handle the things that we need to do, kind of to close up shop on the lake a bit. So a few things, maybe start with something that may have the longer lead time and is critical. In the past, Conray, with the exception of last year, we've been able to store the boat in Hudson. And I don't know if that's something that you've looked into for this year.
I'll call the town manager and ask him, but I have a
Okay.
feel, I think this place we used to put it got appropriated by other people. I talked to the fire chief last year and he said, well, someone else has got storage stuff in there, so I'll call the Hudson town manager and ask him if he can find places for it.
Okay. And I think the sooner the better, so that if we need to find an
Good,
alternative,
good to know.
I know you managed to somehow shoehorn that into your,
Into my toy shed.
yeah, I don't know how you manage that with other things, but if we have to look for an alternative, we can talk to Stowe or whatever.
So what we really should do long-term is just plan on having it shrink wrapped.
Yeah, that's a not an insignificant cost every year.
It's about roughly $30 a foot. It might be a little less, it might be 25, but it's in that range.
Yeah.
And she's a 20-foot boat, so $600 if it's $30 a foot.
Right. So as I said, that's not an insignificant amount in our budgets.
For our budget, that's big.
Yep. Okay, so if you will take that, and if you get an answer one way or the other, you can just let Dan and I know. You don't have to wait to the next meeting to know whether we have a commitment on that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, and then timing for when you tend to want to bring the boat in off the water.
The boat can stay in the water for a while. Maybe the middle of October. Second week in October or so is when we start to pull everything out.
Okay.
It's a little bit, you gotta watch the weather a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it continues to be warm and nice in the fall, we're gonna have a lot of boats on the lake. So we should probably leave things in a little longer.
Yep.
If the longer term forecast looks like it's gonna get cold and snowy, you gotta get stuff out.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, and I like storing some at your house and some at my house. That means we don't have to transport them as far.
That's true. So we can certainly do that this year.
Yeah, put 1, 2, 3 at your house and then put
Yeah.
the other ones at mine. And we can work together when you get them out. So I would suggest pulling them middle of October.
Okay.
And I'll find out about the boat. The boat can stay in a little bit longer. It becomes kind of an emergency. I mean, we haven't had any emergencies, but
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
So.
Okay.
And, the other piece of that is the buoy lights. They don't seem to last that long. I repair them. I've repaired 2 of them already and got them back working. But even though they're not supposed to leak, you open them up and they're full of water. And so we probably should do 2 things. We should probably stock a spare, so when one goes out, we can just swap it.
So I say that again, Conrad, you kind of broke up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Conrad, could you just say that again? We should do what?
We should keep a spare buoy light in stock so that when one fails, like the Pine Point one right now, I could just go down and swap in another one. And so, and maybe, some in our budgeting process, we should probably buy 2 of them, because I think most of them are still working.
How much are they?
About $60 a piece, I think.
I think they were, I think the last one was a little bit more. It
Yeah,
was like 80 something or,
Yeah, I was gonna say 90, and we might have paid for the last one because of
Sure.
supply.
Should we just authorize Conrad to get, 2 or 3 of them?
at this time, I mean, does it make sense, Conrad,
We
to,
don't need them now.
right? And then
Okay.
We want them for the spring. It's the same budget.
yeah,
But
Exactly.
If we wait till around, just before we put stuff back in the water to buy a couple, then we don't have to have them hanging around all winter.
right. Yeah, I think that would be better. We will certainly need to, I'm certainly happy, for us to do that. I just think we might as well hold off and
Don't
do
wanna
that
store 'em where they have-
closer, and we may need more. Who knows? So,
We'll evaluate. Right now, everything's working except for Pine Point.
okay,
So let's, when we talk about our next meeting, maybe we can talk about a hard date to pull stuff out, because we'll have an October meeting, right?
we can.
So 1 or 2 things, if we're gonna have an October meeting, because we got the Solitude stuff to worry about.
Yep.
And bills, but, middle of October is when we should pull the buoys out. If we can wait till our next meeting and then just pull them, I'm fine with that.
Yep.
It should-
Talking about drawdown too, right?
Yeah, so that was kind of the next piece. So
That's the
we-
next topic.
Yeah,
They're not
so-
related though,
so,
but they
Yeah,
should be out
I'm
November
fine.
1st.
well, when we get to next meeting, let's factor that in. And then we can, but we'll sort of tentatively assume that sometime in the middle of October, unless weather, the weather or the forecast for weather is such that that doesn't make sense. And Conrad, I'm happy to work with you on taking them out.
We can pull them out.
leaving
no
some
problem.
here.
It'll
Yep.
be easy.
Yep.
They're not that hard to pull.
Nope, we're getting pretty good at it.
That's all. A lot cleaner.
Excellent. Okay, so drawdowns. So on that topic, so we do need to kind of know our dates for,
Right. So do you want me
notifying
to?
public and all of that.
Yeah. So the official drawdown dates are October 15th through 30th. Now, there's a little bit of content that is to start to finish by December 1st.
Yeah.
Now, there's a little bit of context to this. First of all, through the wonderful data collection that Dave's done and the analysis of flow rates that Kirk has done, we actually have a pretty good way to calculate how long it's going to take. But we do have the factor that with the dam problem, that's the next topic, the dam repair. Subsequent to that, we've already started doing a drawdown. 2 3-inch boards, that's like a 6-inch board, have already been removed in order to deal with the issues around the dam repair. So we, in a sense, we've kind of started that drawdown. We do want to give people 3 weeks notice. So I'd like to actually to have Kirk or Dave weigh in. I think I did informally talk with Dave beforehand. I think we were saying to maybe wait a week to like the 22nd or something to start from that October 15th, 30th frame, given that we already started doing the drawdown, to start it on October 22nd or something like that to continue removing the boards. But I'd like Dave and Kirk to weigh in on those calculations.
That sounds reasonable to me. Just for the start of the drawdown, the level has gone down 5 inches since the beginning of September. And that's essentially when we got the extra rain from the last big storm and we took the board out. So it has come down 5 inches from where we were at the beginning of the month.
And that at the beginning was actually higher than normal. It was above the weir, am I correct, by an inch or so?
Yeah, it was a little bit high. But it continues to go down now. It goes down a couple tenths of a foot every day.
And
Hundredths of a foot, excuse me.
and Kirk, I don't know if you have any projections of if we were to do pulling out a board at a time, we need to complete it, the drawdown by December 1st. Of course, there's always a trade-off here. People like to have a little extra time to enjoy the fall weather on the lake. On the other hand, they do need advance notice to be able to get their boats out. And also we need a slow enough pace so that beavers or any other wildlife are able to accommodate. So given all that, do you think that October 22nd or so is a good time, and when do you think we'll reach the 14-inch full drawdown?
I don't have a really strong opinion on that, Dan, but I think that it sounds reasonable. And what I'd offer is that because we have the model now that can accurately predict drawdown times and durations, we can run some scenarios and ask some what if questions about different levels of rain through October and November, and kind of give ourselves some assurance that we're doing the right thing. And that's what.
But given all that, there are always going to be vagaries we don't know,
Yeah.
and I think history shows that if we just pick a date and we just run with that, but it'd be interesting to see what you project and start taking bets on that to see who nails the date. No, but seriously, if we can approve the 22nd, I'll draft up a note to notify residents about this.
Yes.
The reason I think that the simulation might be useful, Dan, is it's been such an unusual year for rain.
Yeah.
Expecting a drawdown time to be in sync with previous years, we might be surprised.
Kirk, translated, I think you've said that's going to take longer than it has in the past.
We're already down 5.
Although we never had pulled out boards beforehand,
Right,
so
right.
it's an abnormal situation.
Yeah.
But we're not,
Yeah,
not down 5. We're down 5 from higher than TOC. So what's the actual measurement right now?
I think I saw it today, Dave, around 2.8, 2 points. I can't remember exactly, but it's down near where the top of the weir usually is, I believe.
Yeah, it's 2.73.
173.
And so translate that into inches down from norm. If we talk about bringing it down 14 inches from norm, what are we down from that normal?
2.7 is normally the height of the weir
Speaking.
when no boards are removed.
My name is Anne Taylor, a publicist from your online publicist.
So right now it's actually about normal.
Okay.
So, and if I remember right, 1.6.
Oh, yeah, you called it a really bad time.
Hey,
Don't call
Dick,
me
can you
again.
mute?
Bye.
Dick, can you mute?
Oh, sorry. I thought I was.
So if I remember right, winter drawdown levels, what, 1.5 roughly? What's our goal?
Our goal is a 14-inch drawdown from the top of the weir.
And that's what, so the reading would be what, 1.5, 1.6? The top of the weir is.
Dave, you're muted.
Yeah, about that, from 2.7, yeah.
Yeah, 1.7, 1.8 is the low that we get during the drawdown.
Okay, so we're roughly a foot above that right now. So we got 12 inches to take out of the lake yet.
Right.
It's right about normal weir elevation right now. So that 5 inches that has come out is 5 inches of excess because of all.
Okay,
I see. Okay.
all right. So,
All right.
I mean, I know there's no perfect answer. It sounds like if we start the process, Dan, for assuming we'll start the drawdown on or around October 22nd. And that way we can get that information out to the community early enough for folks to actually, spend time on their property or whatever they want to do, get their boats out
So
as appropriate.
why don't we think about, a process here that we kind of codify a little bit and just say, we'll send out the 3-week notice on October 1st.
Yeah, so we do actually have in the order of conditions that it's we need to start the drawdown between October 15th and October 30th and give people 3-week advance notice. If we did that October 1st, we actually could notify people sooner. It has to be at least 3 weeks.
Right.
So let's go with a sooner notification, and then that way we can draw down as appropriate.
Yeah, so I'll do a note that we'll distribute over the next few days that says we'll start the drawdown on or about the 22nd and expect to have the full drawdown by December 1st.
I agree with that.
Yep.
And I don't think we need a motion on that because it's standard practice per the order of conditions.
Yep.
The only bad thing that can happen is if we get an early freeze. Because we really would like to draw down the lake before it freezes. Because if we keep drawing it down with ice on it, you get strange behaviors on the lake. And you get ice, you get water that drops and it's got ice on top of it. And so we really would like to make sure we get that lake down before any freezes happen, any hard freezes happen. The other side of that is that the hard freezes are what kill the weeds in the shallows. So, so I'm always a fan of a little bit earlier drawdown rather than a little bit later.
Yeah, although I think that when we reviewed these and had public input, we tried to figure out, because there's always a trade-off. Some people want early, some people want later. And what we ended up getting the approval for is between the dates of the 15th to the 31st.
Yep. Yep. And so I think that kind of, so I believe that's a good plan, Dan, is if you can put together that, that notice and get that out beginning of October, then we will have met our 3-week advance notice. I mean, if you have it ready, sooner than that, that's fine. Just to give people an understanding that's going to happen. And then, if there's some unusual circumstance that happens, then we'll deal with that when that circumstance happens.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I will not be here October 1 through 10.
Okay. Okay. All right. So that's all that I had on end of season planning. Is there anything else I'm forgetting about that we need to be factoring in and make sure we plan for? Sounds not. Okay. Thank you for that, working through on that one. Dam repair, and I don't mean DAMN, dam repair. So, Dan, I think you wanted to just give a very quick
Yeah.
update. You know, this is obviously, again, I want to preface this with, this is not an LBC issue. It's that we don't have jurisdiction over that. But we do have folks who are watching it. And so, you know, any update is really just passing along some information from other groups who are responsible.
Right. Well, this was actually, I have to say, an impressive, fast response. That we noticed the the dam. I think it was on the 20th of August. Dave Gray in the morning went out and did his normal observations, measurements, looked on the side of the weir, and then came back in the afternoon. At that point, saw that on the side it had collapsed. That the rocks that they're solid there on the side of the dam outflow. Apparently, there was like a sinkhole over time that just fortunately was not when Dave was standing on it, but it collapsed. So we had to very quickly mobilize. I say we, it was a lot of people, but ended up that the chief of police, the fire department, the highway department, the town administrator, numbers of people to say, yes, this is in fact a serious problem. And very quickly, within 24 hours, it was repaired. They brought in trucks that they had to block off the dam. What they concluded was there was a leak in the side of the dam. That there's a place where, a square frame hits a round pipe, and on the edges there had over time worn away. And unbeknownst to us, that was over time, we don't know how long, eroding. And then it just finally reached that point of, boom, that's when it went. So they blocked off the dam with sandbags. They brought in these huge pumps that pumped the water out and any residual that came over. Then they brought in some people to do the cement, and they had the state engineer coming in, the contracted company that we work with. I keep on thinking it's Smith and Wesson, but that's a different name. Made sure that all this engineering was good. And long story short, they did the repair. Subsequent to that, the town solidified the rocks on the side and also repaved where it had sagged in the road across the dam. That repair work is now fully complete. We still have issues over the long run relating to the dam that have long been in plans, and that who knows when that will actually get done. That's a separate topic. It's not our jurisdiction, although it is our concern to work on making sure that dam is solid and that the slope is corrected and the outflows works. But that's a topic for a different day. Those are still issues that are there. But this problem was resolved. I did end up sending a letter to the editor. I don't know if any of you saw it, but
Yeah,
I
very
wanted
good.
to give incredible praise to everyone involved for working so quickly on the day before a hurricane was scheduled to come through. Fortunately, we weren't obliterated with that as we might have been, but we were in good shape with that. And that in turn led to the question of removing buoys to release some of the stress on the dam. And I don't know if Dave, you want to pick up again on this topic as a follow-up to the dam repair work?
No, I think you pretty well summarized it. I think that's good. The interesting thing was that where we had always thought that they should lower the dam to protect it, the thing they were most concerned about was the high flow rate going through the culvert, because that's where the leak was occurring, and that's what was washing out and undermining the culvert, and that's what finally broke loose. So they were concerned about a high flow rate going through there, whereas we were concerned about the overall pressure on the dam. Now that they put in more than a ton of hydraulic cement, I think the seal in the culvert should be in pretty good shape. It was an interesting thing, with cement, a continuous pour is always a good thing. and they had a bucket brigade of mixing and carrying buckets of cement to spread it in there. And they kept that thing going all the time that they had raised the board to stop the flow altogether, had a sump pump and bypass and everything to make sure they didn't get flooded with water while they were working in there. So it was pretty impressive how they handled it.
They also used this as an opportunity there were a few rust leaks in the pipe itself, and they essentially put cement in what they call a half moon to make sure that the pipe actually is in stronger condition.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'd also like to, one of our former commissioners got involved too. She's a civil engineer, Teresa. And the original plan on that was no one thought it was an emergency. And Teresa is also a civil engineer. She went down and looked at it on Friday, and she made a lot of calls to create the urgency with the town manager and a few other people. So, since she is a civil engineer, when she looked at it and she called people, she was able to get people to respond quicker than, because the original plan was, well, we'll look at it on Saturday. Well, because of what Teresa did, we ended up fixing it on Saturday. And so, she helped us a lot with, and she's not a commissioner anymore, but she still pays attention, and she is an engineer, which
Yeah, well, when you see her, thank her.
Yes,
And also
absolutely.
thank you, Conray, because you came around and they had to keep waves from, sloshing water in. So you were able to make sure that traffic, kept slow. And I think the residents were actually exceptionally collaborative, especially when they knew they had to deal with Conray if they didn't.
they were good. They were really good. It takes a village, right? All of us.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that, Conrad, because I had not heard that Teresa, was
Oh, yeah,
really
she was
actively
definitely,
involved in that. That's excellent. I know
Yeah.
she's got amazing knowledge on these things, so.
she was definitely a presence there, and thank her.
She saw that sinkhole right away and knew what was going on, because that's her field. That's what she does.
Yep. Excellent. Okay, so I think we're through with that topic. Moving on to the next one, which is just a general update discussion around water quality and Healthy Lake Boon initiative. So Dan, I think you're kind of on point there.
Yeah, and also I give again continued credit to Rebecca Longval, who is our coordinator. She is the conservation lead in Bolton and brings that expertise to Stowe and really is doing a great job. We've asked her to be the team lead for developing solutions based on this analysis. I mean, that's the idea. How do we make sure that over the long haul, we keep the health of the lake over the next year, 5 years, 10 years and beyond? So that's a phase that's going to happen after Brown and Caldwell finishes their report. But meanwhile, we're continuing with the observations. The next one, we had one August 15th, and then the next one is tentatively for September 12th, I believe it is. We haven't finalized that yet, but that's the likely date. And that's all moving apace. The one thing I'll add that has been a factor here is that we did find some positive measures of some cyanotoxins. And this is leading to a revision in the way that we in the town monitor the cyanobacteria. The town does only tests at the town beach. First does a visual, and if they see something, a clump and something that might, of algae that might possibly be cyanobacteria, they then get a sample they send to a lab. But as you may recall last year, that was actually a very slow and frustrating process to both do the testing and get ongoing test results. And furthermore, it's only one place on the lake. So meanwhile, Dave Gray found a kit that's actually pretty accurate. It's a rapid test kit that's a little thing that you get a sample of water, you put it in there, and it can detect the presence of cyanotoxins. It's essentially an on-off, either it finds some or it doesn't. There's some gradations, but that in fact found a positive sample, in fact, right by Dave's property where you saw a mass of algae, and then a couple of other locations, one off of the second basin, and then I think another one by the dam, was it? And so all of this has led to, first of all, having the Healthy Lake Boon Initiative do this type of rapid response testing at each of the normal measurement sites. But also we need to develop, and we've been in discussion about this, a protocol to supplement what the town does with these kits, and have, say, a person in each basin who is the lead, who is trained, who, if people see a visual observation, then we can do this rapid response test. And they would have these, they're about $35 a piece. And at this point, the MVP grant is paying for those. Then at some point that can trigger a full-blown lab test, which is something like $350, which we now have again in the MVP budget, dollars to do that on an occasional basis as warranted. But we're trying to sort of shift the process for the future to enable a broader testing around the lake, a faster response, having more people doing observations and not just do the one that's by the town beach managed by the town. And I guess I'd like Dave and Kirk to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is just like the Board of Health check did, the first thing they do is look for an observation, look for an algae bloom, and then we can do this quick test, which can identify if it includes toxins, the cyanotoxins. And if that's positive, our plan is to have the Healthy Lake Boon project actually fund additional analyses of that. And we've had one so far, although the timing wasn't good. The laboratory has to be open the day after we take the sample so that they can actually analyze it. So we'd like the algae blooms to occur early in the week for our convenience. But what we want to do is get a relationship between the appearance, the toxins, and the real results, or the quick test for toxins, and then the real results, which are approved by the state. So if we can start to get a correlation, maybe we'll have a better handle on it in the future to warn people at the right time and not cry wolf too much.
Yep.
The only thing I'll add to that, Dave, is that we will also try to add to that correlation the phosphorus levels in the water at the time we observe the algae. So that hopefully over time we can develop a correlation between phosphorus, which is easy to sample for, and the likelihood of cyanotoxins in the water.
Yeah, I might add that one of the algae blooms that was reported when I went down there, I realized that it was reported by somebody who lives on one of the greenest lawns on the lake that comes right down to the lake. And he asked me, what causes this? So there's an opportunity for some education here.
Yeah, so this revised plan does have to get approved by the the Stowe town. Denise Demkowski has taken the lead on making sure decisions about closing the beach and communications are coordinated at the town level, and that she's taken charge. I appreciate her doing that. We need to make sure that the plan that we've described here is approved by Denise and presumably also by our counterpart in Hudson, and that the Board of Health, that we're not, because we don't want to falsely claim that this rapid test is definitive. It's actually quite good. It's incredibly useful. It's inexpensive and it's fast and it's local, but it's not the formal test. So we have a few steps to go through in that revised process.
And I just want to add too that the blooms that we've witnessed visually this year so far have all been very localized. It hasn't been an indication of widespread algae throughout the lake. They've been very localized and very short-lived. That's not to downplay their significance, but I think it's an important thing to remember.
Do you think, Kirk, that the amount of rain that we've had has flushed the waters better and therefore possibly helped to have a lower, nutrient level?
Intuitively, I think so. Yeah, we're going to have to see if that plays out with the modeling. But intuitively, I think that the lake in general this year, we're seeing fairly low levels of nutrients. I think it's flushing fairly rapidly.
And I think another insight that you've just noted there is that, last year when there were positives at the town beach, essentially we were saying shut down the entire lake. Well, it is localized, and this is actually quite a complex. The modeling of algae blooms and cyanobacteria and cyanotoxins is not a turn it on and the entire lake has it. It is, and anybody who's swimming has to just avoid that mass. You don't want to dive into that. We have looked at the methods used by other towns. In particular, Harvard has a plan and testing and visual and sort of metric levels and so on, and that will presumably get incorporated into the plan that emerges from this.
We do have some good news amidst all this. Some of you may remember that we sent some scuba divers down to the bottom of the lake about 4 months ago, and those samples, those cores, have been incubating in a lab for 3 months. That's a 90-day test. They gradually control the oxygen in the water and basically entice the phosphorus to come out of the sediment at the bottom of the core, and then measure the rate at which the phosphorus comes out and how that changes over time. And the tests are done. We communicated with the lab last week. They're preparing a report. I think they're meeting either today or tomorrow to sort of approve the results and get some information back to us on when we can expect it.
Good.
Excellent. Exciting. Awful lot of work going on. Thank you all.
And while Red
Okay.
is here, I will thank him. He's also been very helpful in doing the metrics and nobly coming out and doing his mode and doing the metrics and stuff. In fact, also helped us get a more refined depth analysis using your depth meter. So thank you for that, Red. And Michelle also, I see, is here. She's been helping with the measurements as well. I don't want to miss anybody, but all y'all, thank you.
Yes. All right. So moving on to our next agenda item. And this, again, this is not an LBC matter per se, but we wanted to just get an opportunity to understand a little bit what's happening on the Kattelle property development. And I think, Dan, you've been following that pretty closely.
Yeah, so this, as you know, there's Alan Kattelle and his offspring have owned this, I think, for a couple generations, about 16 acres, just off of the third basin or the fourth basin, really, that is now up for sale. There is a developer who has at least has an option and has come up with some initial early ideas on a plan. I saw those ideas presented at the Hudson Conservation Commission meeting and had a chance to at least see initially. And I want to clarify, and Pam has made this clear, that what we've seen so far are very early ideas. This is the developer. This is a good process. He's started presenting ideas, getting some initial reactions. They have not been formally vetted, or the abutters haven't been notified. That's a later stage in the process. But this has led to some discussions with the Lake Boon Association, who has decided, and Dave can report on this, to take the lead on developing some kind of a analysis and response to at least the initial plan and some of the ideas there and how to help keep that from putting the lake at risk. So that process is continuing. What I would like at this meeting is to make sure it's okay. I'm kind of like a liaison, if you will. This is not an LBC initiative, it's an LBA initiative. But the LBC may well want to at some point vote to say, yes, we like these ideas or not. It's an LBA initiative. I'm a member of LBA and LBC, as we all are. So I want to make sure it's okay that I'm serving as this liaison for now with the LBA on this process.
I'm certainly fine with it, Conray.
Excellent. Thank you for
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, and just as you said, Dan, I think if as LBA and you with kind of your participation feel like it's a point where the LBC needs to weigh in on something specific or a direction or whatever, yeah, we would just obviously we'll address that at a meeting. So just as we did with with the other property. So.
Yeah. And Dave Gray, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think we could just say that we're looking in two basic areas. One is the zoning, planning, conservation type of thing as far as land development goes, and then the other is the lake impact and the science behind that. So we're looking at possible legal representation and also contracting for scientific analysis of what impact it could have, what can we do to mitigate that, and pull these things together to try to give our recommendation to the Hudson Conservation Commission. Or excuse me, Hudson Concom.
And also direct communications. LBA's had direct communications with the developer, Brian Jacobs, who welcomes this input beforehand, before he invests money in developing detailed plans, if there are things that he can do based on this input. So LBA's had some initial contacts with him on that.
Do we know how many houses that they're thinking of getting in there?
Their current, well, so this is a very preliminary plan. That what they initial idea is that under normal zoning rules, and they put in however they can fit something like 20 homes on that property. However, they're asking for Hudson to use what's called the open space option, where they set aside 50% of the property for open space and then have reduced lot sizes for up to that, however many they could fit under normal zoning, that is 20. So their plan right now has about 20 homes all along the shoreline, and with a little bit of a buffer in their current plan, and also limitation they couldn't have docks and power boats in that basin because it just can't handle it. But that's their current draft early plan.
Okay, well, thank you for your update and Dave and for the work that's going on there to kind of see if there's any possible input and mitigation to getting overwhelming here. All right, so we are down to old business. I had just one thing on old business, so just a quick note on that. At our previous meeting, David Gray, I know you had raised the question about actions relative to the PFAS study that was done by the fire services. And again, while that's not an LBC issue, obviously we sometimes are an avenue for communicating things out to the community. So I did talk with Denise about it, and she indicated that really it's the fire services group that is responsible for any communications and any outreach, public input, etc. And there is a company that is actually doing that work for them, GZA Geo Environmental Inc. So, and Dave, I know you you've gotten through Kathy Safara, the kind of the full report out there. So there is information out there. And we're at this point not planning on doing anything further here, at an LBC meeting.
Yeah, I think you're right. It really is a Board of Health issue, if anything. We may want to suggest that residents in that corner of the lake have their well water tested for PFAS. Certainly, if there are any women of childbearing age, they would be most. It would be most important for them to have their well water tested.
And that's especially for shallow wells.
I would think so. I
Although
don't
in
know how-
abundance of caution.
Yeah, they've been using that for a long time, so it's had time to sink down pretty deep, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good question. It would be interesting to talk to the Board of Health to see what they found up in the center of town where they had the Stowe Fire Station and those wells, how deep they are. Yeah, good question.
Okay, so that was the only old business that I had. Conray or Dan, anything, any follow-up
Good.
from you guys on anything?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Right. So, new business. So, topics for future meetings. I think we've already talked about the RFP, some sort of starting the process around contracting for the herbicide. So I think we'll definitely want to talk about that next time, kind of just to get a sense of what we need to be doing. So other new business at this point.
Maybe one, the status of the police boat and patrol and all that stuff. And the, any progress the police have made towards a new safety officer for the lake.
Okay.
Do we know what's happened on that front? Are they patrolling?
They have been patrolling
Yep.
randomly now and then,
Much less than in Lee's
much,
tenure?
much less.
Have they
Okay.
given us any timeline on improving that?
I have none. That's why I'm putting it as suggesting we
Yeah.
ask.
So
we ask
I had some conversation with
Michael,
both Denise and separately Mike Solis, chief, about that. And Denise indicated that one of the things that the chief was looking into was starting some conversations with Hudson also, to maybe start doing some patrolling at some point. So I don't know if that discussion happened. And then Mike indicated to me that he is actively trying to figure out a way to establish a safety officer or officers kind of within the boundaries that he has to work with the I guess the how to pay them and the requirements to have someone on the police force at this point. And it sounded like that was fairly challenging at this point, that some of the requirements were substantial, like essentially not just dissimilar to a full police officer's training and expertise. So it has not been lost on him. He is working on it, but that was probably 2 weeks ago, and I have not talked with him again. I can check in and see kind of where things stand. The other thing I would, in my conversation with Denise, I forgot about that in old business, the relative to either replacing the engine or motor for the LBC boat, and or any movement towards how we handle boats in general for patrolling, and I just found out from talking with her that the cap for capital is $10,000, not $5,000. So we had been under the assumption that if we needed to spend $5,000, that we were going to need to work through the capital process. That is not the case if we stay under the 10,000. That doesn't mean we can get it approved or anything. I'm just saying it is not a capital expense. 10,000 is the limit on that. And she'd be very interested in having us work a little bit on documenting for her, because she's also new, and I think the town management isn't necessarily as aware of how the boat is used throughout the year or during the season anyway. So at some point we need to start work on just sort of documenting what it's used for, why it's needed, kind of what some of the requirements may be of a vessel that can actually be a patrol boat, those kinds of things. So if Conray and then you start thinking about that a little bit, and I'll probably just via email send out something to say, well, let's start kind of just creating a little bit of background on that space. Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep. All right. So any other new business then?
So I have one question to ask,
Yep.
related to boat speed in the third basin. It seems to be becoming an area that people like to put the metal to the metal, do some donuts, and go fast through the third basin. And my understanding is with the 150-foot rule, there is no place on the third basin to go at speed. We've actually had debates with a few boaters that say, no, no wake is over there, pointing to the narrows. And so I wonder whether we could consider putting a no wake buoy in the middle of the third basin and even the fourth, since they shouldn't be going at speed on those basins by the rules.
Well, that's not exactly right, Red.
Okay, that's why I brought it up.
Is it a jet ski or a regular boat?
Regular jet skis are doing it all the time. The regular boats are beginning to do it more so now.
So the regular boats can operate at speed, and they don't have to be 150 feet from shore unless there's an active swimming beach, but the jet skis do. So the jet skis.
I thought the 150-foot rule was for the boats too.
No, you got to be careful on that one. You got to read it. You got to read that one carefully. But the jet skis are specifically called out in the law.
Okay.
So
We can. So again, this is we're
law.
on a new business topic, so we can certainly add this as a topic for discussion at a future meeting. So I have that noted.
Okay, good.
Excellent. Okay, so that brings us to the date of next meeting. So sounds like we need to meet in October, sometime in the middle of October. So I don't know.
I'm pretty open.
13th or the 20th. Wait, so Conrad, you said you're away through the 10th. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty open, except for the 14th.
Okay. Dan, do you feel like we have to meet earlier, or if we met more like the 20th, we're okay? I don't know if there's anything that's pressing us to get earlier.
I can't think of anything that is.
Okay. So why don't we target October 20th? That's a Wednesday. And if anything comes out of any of our, kind of some of the action items people are taking to find out a little bit more about, whether it's, storage or it's, what we have to do for the contracting process. If that in any way, seems to push us towards needing it earlier, we certainly can discuss that. So we'll target the 20th and see where that takes us. All right. So at this point, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, you do. So moved.
I'll second.
All right. And requires no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and it is unanimous.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
And
very much.
thanks, Chris, for running a smooth meeting.
Yeah, thank you all.
All
All right,
righty.
bye-bye now. Good
All
night.
right.
Bye.
Bye.